Bishop Rock, Godrevi, Lizard, Longships, Pendeen, Peninnis Head, Round Island, Tatterdew, Wolf, Seven Stones. The very names evoke feelings of awe and grateful respect here at the most southwesterly tip of Britain, for these are the names of the lights that stand guard over these treacherous waters. Yes, these are the guiding lights. The sun sets over Nan Jizzle, and darkness beckons. Before the 17th century, the task of shining lights at night to guide mariners fell to the church. A most famous medieval light was to be found in these waters. It burned brightly on the lofty heights of the church on the summit of St. Michael's Mount. The light was established over 600 years ago, around 1350 AD. It was around this time that the societies of mariners, known as Trinity Houses, were formed. Various charters have been granted to Trinity House since the first one was given in 1514 by King Henry VIII. The first master of Trinity House was King William IV, whilst he was Prince William, Duke of Clarence. Last century, Prince Albert was master for almost 30 years, and today the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, has held the position since 1969. And so it is perhaps appropriate that we start our look at the guiding lights here at the Lizard, the home of the first lighthouse to be built in the southwest. Known as the Graveyard of Ships, the coastline around the Lizard, Britain's most southerly headland, was in the early 17th century an area thriving with wrecking and smuggling. The first lighthouse was commenced in 1618, but during construction work in 1619, the local villagers attacked the builders and started to demolish the half-built structure. The community objected to the building of the lighthouse, since it was felt that the light, in reducing the number of shipwrecks, would also reduce their income from wrecking. The present lighthouse was completed in 1751 and was altered in 1812 to leave it much as it is today. The twin towers are a notable feature of this station. Eddie Matthews is principal keeper at the Lizard Lighthouse. Here he explains the operation of the lantern.
Now what is incredible about this is the fact that it's all the original gear and it weighs nearly 3 tons, and what happens is you can push it around with one finger and it's all floating on a bath of mercury. And what happens is the light comes on, the curved bits at the bottom magnifies it and then throws it to the opposite side so the power is concentrated through the bullseyes. There's 4 bullseyes. The whole thing revolves in 12 seconds. So the character of the lizard light is one white flash every 3 seconds. And the light is 800,000 candle power, and it throws the light 25 miles.
Part of Eddie's job involves regular recording of weather conditions and rainfall.
They are 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock GMT. Weather, rainfall for 24 hours. On Wednesday, was it 24th of November? 4.8 millimeters. Then I've got to send the direction of the wind, which is east, which is 090. Speed of the wind is about 24 knots. And my rainfall, which you saw me do outside there, was 4.9 millimeters. And then I just put it all in the computer and send it off to Bracknell. And the type of cloud is straight Q. And the height of that cloud, I reckon, is 3,000 feet. That's all I need. I punch it all in, and away it goes.
So that's one of thousands of bits of
all around the coast
of reports that Bracknell get, and that is one little bit of all the information they would use then to make their weather forecast.
That's correct. I mean, the next one from us is Senna.
Yeah.
That way, and Falmouth, the other way, and like you just said, all around the coast. Yeah.
The Lizard has the last operational compressed air foghorn. Having left the Lizard, we now embark in the Trinity House helicopter for the short flight from St Just Airfield across Sennen Bay to the Longships. on the very top of the Longship's lighthouse, around 125 feet above the sea, on a lovely fine day. It's not always like this. The first lighthouse was built on the Longships in 1795, but because it was not high enough, was regularly extinguished by the sea. The present structure was completed in 1875. Let's have a look over the edge. The Longship's light is an isophase light. That is, its on period is equal to its off period. The light shows white over most areas, but has red sectors showing towards the shore and associated dangers. The white sector light has a range of 18 miles, with the red sector being slightly less. The light is powered by a diesel generator, which you can no doubt hear. The lighthouse was built dry in segments in nearby Senon Cove. The stones, weighing up to 3 tons each, were then shipped out and laboriously manoeuvred into place when weather permitted. On several occasions, in atrocious conditions, men were swept into the sea. All were thankfully saved. Before the mid-1970s, all reliefs on the Longships were carried out by boat from Senon Cove. Several landings were available, some connected to the main rock by concrete bridges. All reliefs, and indeed the shipping of all materials, is now carried out by helicopter. The last regular keepers left the station in 1988, when it became fully automatic. Leaving the longships on a perfect summer's evening, we head east to Tarturdue, the newest lighthouse on our coast, situated just west of Lamorna. The lighthouse was established in 1965 and sits on the cliff above the dangerous Bucks Rocks. The wreck of the Juan Ferrer in 1963 at nearby Carnbascoan had highlighted the need for such a light, which had been sought for many years by local fishermen. Tarturdue main light flashes 3 times every 15 seconds and has a range of 23 miles. A fixed red light shines over the dangerous Ronaldstone Reef some 3.5 miles to the west. And the Ronaldstone is our next stop, viewed from the cliffs at Gwenephead near Porthgwara. The Ronaldstone buoy, anchored about 1/4 mile south of the reef, is a south cardinal buoy, indicated by its top mark of 2 inverted cones and its characteristic 6 short plus 1 long flash. These characteristics tell shipping to pass to the south of the buoy, thus avoiding the danger area. Guarding the western approach to Mounts Bay, the Low Lee buoy is an east cardinal buoy, flashing 3 times every 10 seconds, with its characteristic bases together top mark cones. Ships pass east of the buoy to avoid dangers. All the buoys are now powered by batteries charged by solar panels. The other lit cardinal buoy around the West Cornwall coast is the Stones buoy, guarding the dangerous Stones Reef 3 miles to the northeast of St Ives. This is a north cardinal buoy with a continuous flashing light and 2 point-up cones as its top mark. Also guarding the Stones Reef and St Ives Bay is Godrevy Lighthouse. An early casualty of the Stones was the Garland, which foundered on the 31st of January 1649. The ship was carrying the possessions of King Charles I, who had been executed the day before in Whitehall. The account of the day describes countless royal valuables being washed up and fought over here in St Ives. Godrevy Lighthouse was established in 1859, following the wreck of the iron screw steamer Nile in 1854, with the loss of all passengers and crew. Godrevy, in common with all offshore stations, is now accessed by helicopter. The lighthouse is fully automatic and only visited for maintenance and repairs. The light at Godrevy is battery powered, with the batteries being charged by a bank of solar cells. The white light flashes once every 10 seconds, with a red sector over the stone's reef. And so we take our leave of Godrevy to visit the Trinity House National Lighthouse Centre at Penzance. This is Pendeen Lighthouse, built on a strategic headland which is the first landfall for vessels southbound from the Irish Sea. The lighthouse, overlooking the Three-Stone Oar, or Ray, was built in 1900 and became fully automatic in 1995. All the lighthouses in our area are now fully automatic, with the exception of the Lizard, which will join the rest in 1998. A control centre at Harwich monitors the status of the various equipments in the lighthouses, the data being transmitted by radio telemetry. Both Pendeen and the Lizard lighthouses are open to the public for most of the year. Bill Arnold now explains the operation of the lantern.
That is the original lens from 1900, made by Chance Brothers of Birmingham. It weighs 2.5 tons, and it's glass prisms set in phosphor bronze, floating on a bath of mercury. The steel roller bearings are only there as guides to stop the lens from rocking. It's the mercury in the trough that is doing all the work as a liquid bearing. The lens rotates once every 30 seconds, and it is split in two equal sides, 4 bullseyes on each side, giving you a flash pattern of 4 flashes every 15 seconds.
In the event of both main lamps failing, or their electrical supply failing, the emergency light, seen here, is automatically activated. In such an event, the Harwich Control Centre would immediately be aware of the problem and take the necessary action. This black two-pronged affair is a fog detector. This detects moisture in the atmosphere and automatically activates the foghorn. Towards Land's End from Pendeen is St Just Airport, from where the Trinity House helicopter operates in this area.
I'm John Kirkham. I work for Bond Helicopters, and I've been flying for Trinity House now since 1984. From a pilot's point of view, the Trinity House operation is really a very good one because of the variety of places that we have to land. From St Just here, we do the lighthouses out at the Scillies, that's the Bishop Rock and the Round Island, and also Longships and Wolf and Godrevy on the north coast. Each one of those is slightly different. We've got lantern top landings on the Wolf, the Bishop Rock and the Longships. Round Island is a rock, and we land on a pad that's prepared on the rock. And Godrevy has just got a new helipad on it, which is also on one side of the rock. The aircraft we've been using since Bond Helicopters got the contract, which was back in 1979, is the Volco 105, which you see me in here. It's way ahead of its time when it was introduced into the German army in 1970, and because of its design, we've got in this configuration we can carry 4 passengers. We also can carry underslung loads up to about half a ton, and we've got a magic amount of boot space. Again, because of the design, we can load virtually anything we like into the boot space, so long as we don't overload the aircraft weight-wise. As long as we keep below the all-up weight of the aircraft, we can't get this thing to fly out of centre of gravity, which makes it very nice for a pilot. We're also fitted with emergency floats on the skids. These are only for crashing on the water, basically, in case we have, in the unlikely event of having a double engine failure, or possibly a tail rotor failure, or possibly a fire. To my knowledge, none of those things have happened yet on Trinity House operation, and I hope they don't. We have a mirror fitted down on the front of the aircraft, so that I can see an underslung load in flight, and I can use that to position a load accurately on top of the lighthouse. When it comes to landing on the lighthouses, they're all slightly different. The lantern tops, that's where we have the helipad actually on the top of the lighthouse itself. They look quite spectacular to the layman, but in fact to do a normal landing on the top is very easy, because we don't have any problems with turbulence because of the design of the lighthouse. So long as we can see it, to land on up to winds of about 40-45 knots, then we can land on the top quite happily. The only problems there, of course, are then we have to unload the passengers, and it's sometimes too dangerous for them to get out with those sort of winds. But basically, landing on a lantern top is no real problem for us at all. Underslung loads to a lantern top are slightly different, because we can actually lose sight of the lighthouse as we're coming over the top of it. They've got little pointers on it which can help us to locate, and as I said before, we have the mirror. But for those, we also carry a crewman in the back who, when we get close to the lighthouse, will open the door and help us to actually guide over the top of the lighthouse to accurately position the load. If you can imagine, there are 4 trap doors on the helipad for the men to get up and down onto it and off it. And if there were people on the lighthouse and we drop the load on the trap doors, then they're stuck. So we don't like doing that. The other sort of landing, or another sort of landing we have, are the rocks, where like Round Island or Godrevy, where the lighthouse is actually on quite a large rock, and the helipad is situated alongside the lighthouse. They don't look so spectacular to a layman, but in fact they pose more of a problem because of the amount of turbulence that we can sometimes get. So we have to be very well aware, especially in the latter stages of landing, the sort of turbulence we might get and the sort of problems we might have with power. The third type of landing we do with Trinity House is on the Trinity House tenders. That's the Trinity House vessels Patricia and Mermaid. And they've got quite a large helideck. Again, they're not too bad because they can position themselves into wind so that the landing force isn't too bad. We can operate from those normally in up to about gale force winds. We use the Trinity House tenders quite a lot to do bulk refueling of the lighthouses, and this involves a lot of short sector, multi-sector underslung loads. So we refuel the lighthouses using underslung bags of about 100 gallons a time. We pick up the bag from the tender, take it onto the lighthouse, drop it, back to the tender, pick up another one, drop it, and so on. And we have been known to fly 200 of these sectors in one day, which is really hard work. Probably the fourth and probably the final sort of landing we regularly do on the Trinity House is on the light vessels. Now, these always present a problem. They're much smaller than the Trinity House tenders. They've got a tiny helideck, which is just about the right size for a Bolko. In fact, that's what it was designed for. But they have no motive power at all, so they're completely at the mercy of the wind and the tide. Normally, unfortunately, they're at the mercy of the tide, and the helicopter flies at the mercy of the wind. So we're quite frequently doing out-of-wind landings, which is, again, quite difficult for the pilot. They're obviously also in places where there are sandbanks or reefs, so the sea conditions around the light vessels are always quite nasty as well. So we then have a problem with a small deck that's moving up and down and sideways quite a lot, crosswind or downwind. The only time they actually behave themselves is when you get a flat calm, and unfortunately with a flat calm we often have problems with fog. So we can't win on the light vessels. Fortunately for us, most of them are unmanned now. When they were manned, the guys have been on there for a month and they were desperate to come off. We sometimes did some landings which were quite hairy on occasions. We stand off, we look at the wind and the weather and the waves, and you look for the calm period, because there's always a calm period, and then it's land on, do the relief and land off. And sometimes, of course, we could get caught out because the calm period didn't last as long as we hoped it would. Now all the light vessels are unmanned, so we only go out there now to put engineers on to check out faults or to do regular maintenance. And basically we pick the days now so that it's a reasonable day for landing and we can get them off on the same day. So we still do them, and they're still always good fun, and they're still always quite difficult, but we don't do them quite so often.
And here is the Seven Stones light vessel, seen from Land's End at a distance of 14 miles, maintaining its lonely vigil, showing its 3 flashes every 30 seconds. The Seven Stones is one of 11 light vessel stations maintained by Trinity House. The ship is fully automatic, and as you can hear, the foghorn operates continuously. Again, all functions are monitored by the Harwich Control Centre, including regular checks of the vessel's position via its onboard navigation equipment. Light ships normally remain on station for 3 years before a replacement takes up station and the original is brought ashore for an overhaul. The Seven Stones became infamous with the wreck of the supertanker Torrey Canyon in 1967, resulting in huge oil pollution on local shores. Lightships have no engines and ride to their anchors with no means of moving. It must have been a very special breed of men who manned these vessels. From the Seven Stones, we fly to the Wolf Rock, probably the most isolated of all our lighthouses. The Wolf is generally accepted as the worst of all for bad weather, and became the first lighthouse to be fitted with a helipad. Some of the heavy helipad gratings have been washed out during winter storms, despite being some 130 feet above sea level. The lighthouse was completed in 1869, having taken 8 years to build. By the end of the third year, only 37 stones had been successfully landed and put into position. The construction work was based at Penzance and was obviously very dependent on the weather. By 1840, an iron cone beacon was established which carried the first light on the Wolf. The cone still stands on the landing today.
We'll come back and try again a bit later if things continue.
Yeah, that's fine. If we carry on into the Wolf and I'll have a look later on.
Yeah, if it had been into wind, then we would probably have a better check of how to get it, but I can't wait for a deal against the wires trying to get landing on the ship as it is, so under this roll we'll give it a go.
Yeah, fair enough if we try Blackwater.
Here in the deafening lantern room, the light flashes every 15 seconds and has a range of 23 miles. Again, a generator provides power. As technology has advanced, such as this modern high-tech trawler, so the Trinity House Lighthouse service has moved with it. As well as having fully automated lighthouses, light floats and buoys, the service operates a series of radio beacons and satellite correction services. Strategic lighthouses are also fitted with Raycon radar transponders, which clearly identify a lighthouse and its position on a ship's radar screen. Times have changed, and someone who's been in the service for many years and seen lots of changes is Eddie Matthews, principal keeper at the Lizard.
Well, Eddie, you're the principal keeper here at the Lizard, and in actual fact the most senior lighthouse keeper in the British Isles, is that correct?
That's correct, Terry. Yeah, 38 and a half years. And with a bit of luck, I'll serve out my 40 years.
What about the changes you've seen in that?
Oh, the changes now, we can talk about that for ages. Say for argument's sake, we'll take the Wolf Rock. When I first started, there was boat relief. Up the breacher's buoy, hauled up to the place. One experience there, coming ashore one time, I got keel-hauled. In other words, as the boat, I got near the boat, and as the boat came up, the wave came in, pulled the boat up, and I was too close to the boat, and I went straight underneath the boat and hauled up there. And of course then the massive improvements from there was the helicopter pad. Because with that first, as I was saying, with the boat, of course, we used to get long overdues. Ended up eating stale food and God knows what. But then of course the big changes came in. They put the helicopter pad on and we had helicopters, which normally, except for fall, we came off on time.
Presumably with the boat reliefs, those that were on the station were always keener to try and get off than the blokes who were in the boat who wanted to get on. Or was everybody ordered and that was it? Who had the final say whether it was doable?
The principal keeper on board at the thing. But like you said, Terry, he was coming ashore. So those waves weren't exactly 8 foot at the time, they were only 5 feet sort of time, sometimes when you got out there. And so several of the reliefs were a little bit dicey, you might say, and if people, oh well, the nicest way to say, but we got a little wet at times.
Yeah.
But all that's gone, and I suppose when you look back at it, it was exciting for anybody who had to watch it, for the people who had to do it. But there again, it was part of the job, and you got used to it.
What about on the Wolf, the helicopter? I heard stories of last winter that the gratings on the helipad washed out. What can you begin to describe what it's like on a rock station like that, on a lighthouse in the middle of the sea, when the waves are going over the top of it?
Well, I'll put it this way. I think it must be the nearest thing to being in a submarine. It must be, because all you can hear, because the windows are 6 foot into the wall, and outside of that are steel shutters, and they're all clamped down. And you just imagine all the noises, for God's sake. The roar, it's just a continuous noise all the time, and the thump as the sea hits the tower. And it's just what's the word? I can't say the word. Cacophony of sound, like being what it must be like in a submarine.
Yeah. Except, I think it's probably worse than in a submarine.
Oh, more noise, yes, yeah.
And
of course the swaying and the shaking of the lighthouse.
You actually feel it.
That's right.
Moving.
And there's where you've got to have faith, isn't it? The faith that the place is going to stand up. But I got to admit, Terry, I'm one of those guys who believes when it's my turn, it's my turn. So I had no fear really once you got used to it. It was just a little bit eerie, really.
Over your time, Eddie, you must have been involved. People tend to think of a lighthouse keeper as a man who keeps a light burning, but I know that a lighthouse keeper was always very much respected for keeping a lookout for the safety of ships and seafarers. I suppose over the years you would have been involved in a few rescues.
Oh yeah, I suppose really the ones we remember are the funny ones. Like I was up on Lundy Island, and there was a trawler just off us. He was sinking, and we were still in radio contract with him. and he called us in, but his radio was fading, so he couldn't get the signal ashore, but he could get us, so we had to call the helicopter in, and we said to the skipper, we said, well, why aren't you taking to the boat? He said, I think you better get your glasses out and have a look, see what's circling us. And there was a damn great shark going around him, and the boat stayed afloat long enough for the helicopter to come and pick them off. That was one funny incident, yeah. But if we weren't there, he wouldn't have had a chance.
No one would have known.
Nobody would have known. Nobody would have known. It's little incidents like that. I mean, another simple one, like one morning, 8:30, the watchman called me and he said, come out and have a look at this. And there's this woman drifting by in a lilo. It turned out that she'd been drifting off the Welsh coast. And 24 hours she'd been on that lilo. And like I said, if the keepers hadn't been there, so I don't know if you know it, but the tide past Lundy goes right past Lundy quick. God knows what would have happened to that woman. I mean, what I'm really getting at is, this modernisation, there won't be any lookouts like that.
No. Eddie, of all the stations you've been on, which one is the worst in bad weather?
Oh, definitely the Wolf Rock. What is it? It's in between roughly the Lizard and the Scilly Isles, gets the Atlantic, everything hits that place. And the reason why that one is so bad is because most lighters have reefs around them, and are literally protected from the hardest and the biggest of the waves. But the Wolf is just on top of a pinnacle, so the actual wave has nothing to stop it before it actually hits the place. And it's by far the worst one, yes. I'll tell you what, if ever you want to be a real lighthouse keeper, you've got to do a time on that. And if you can stand that, you can take any lighthouse in the country.
What about light ships? I mean, again, the only one in our area is the Seven Stones, and that's now automatic. But for a man to be serving on that for a month at a time in the winter must have been a pretty grim experience.
Well, to be quite honest with you, I think they must be mad, because it's like I was saying, the thing can't move, and if anything bears down on it, there's no way they can get out of the way, and they can't slacken or shorten the cable fast enough. And I would imagine it takes a lot of guts to be a light ship man. And of course there's been lots of instances of them being mowed down and all. And no, not for me. I think I'd rather like something more solid than a lighter is like.
What are you going to do when you retire from this lot?
Well, put it this way. I'm always asked that. But I think I'll tell stories like this in the pub and drink my pint of cider.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Back up in helicopter Lima Sierra, we're off to the Scillies. First stop, Round Island. Round Island Lighthouse, Roundy as it's affectionately known, was built in 1887 and automated 100 years later in 1987. The light flashes every 10 seconds and can easily be seen on a clear night from Land's End, 24 miles away. Fun if you enjoy flying. We're en route to Bishop Rock, our final stop. On the way, we pause at Peninis Head Lighthouse. Built in 1911, the lighthouse has always been automatic, and its light flashes once every 20 seconds, just visible here from Land's End. With the old St Agnes lighthouse in the foreground, the bishop can just be seen in the distance. The lighthouse on St Agnes has not been operational since Peninis Head Lighthouse was built in 1911. The first light was shown from St Agnes in 1680. This structure was built in 1806. Here is an 18th century drawing depicting the first coal-fired lighthouse on St Agnes. Bishop Rock, king of the rock lighthouses, towers around 160 feet above sea level and stands sentinel to the eastern end of the Atlantic. The light on the bishop flashes twice every 15 seconds, and its intensity is rated at 2,600,000 candela, giving it a range of 28 miles. It is interesting to note that all the lights have a reserve lamp which automatically moves into place should the main one fail. The first granite tower was completed on the bishop in 1858. This tower was weakened by severe weather, and the present bigger, higher tower was built around the original and completed in 1887. Bags of diesel fuel and water are flown in as underslung loads from St Mary's and connected to gravity feed pipes to the storage tanks in the tower. Here on the helipad, the white rocket light affair is the Raycon transponder. As this tripper's boat pulls away from the bishop, we too leave all the guiding lights with a final scenic flight across the Isles of Scilly.